Warren Buffett once admitted that turning 80 was less about celebration and more about confrontation, confronting the signs of aging that no wealth could erase. He spoke of truths that money couldn't soften, the subtle shifts that reminded him he was human first and a billionaire second. This wasn't about numbers on a balance sheet. It was about numbers on the clock of life. What he revealed may surprise you, because these signs aren't just about frailty. They're about freedom, memory, and legacy. Too often we imagine wealth as a shield against aging, but Buffett's reflections prove otherwise. His story reminds seniors everywhere that even the most powerful figures are humbled by time. And yet, within these signs of aging lie rare lessons. Lessons about how to embrace rest without guilt, how to honor memory even as it falters, and how to live with simplicity that nourishes the heart more than riches ever could. These are not signs of defeat. They are markers of wisdom, signposts that point to what truly matters when the spotlight dims and the applause fades. Stay with me, because each of these signs will open a door not just into Buffett's reality, but into your own potential to live fully, boldly, and meaningfully after 60. Tell me, what age are you watching from? 60, 70, 80. I'd love to see the wisdom of your years. And if you believe wisdom should be shared, like this video and subscribe to Next Age Wisdom. Sign 1. The surprising physical reset. When Warren Buffett turned 80, he encountered something far more humbling than any financial setback. His body began to impose limits he could no longer ignore. For decades, he thrived on long workdays, diving into annual reports at midnight and making decisions that shaped the global economy with energy that seemed boundless. But at this milestone age, he admitted what few public figures dare to say. His body was no longer willing to follow his willpower. The endless hours, the late nights, the constant pressure that once fueled his identity had to give way to something new. Rest. Sleep, once treated as a distraction from productivity, became non-negotiable. Shorter workdays were no longer a choice, but a necessity. At first, this might sound like loss, but Buffett discovered that this change wasn't about weakness at all. It was a physical reset, a natural correction that allowed him to extend his influence by protecting his energy. What he learned, seniors everywhere can take to heart. Slowing down is not surrender, it's strategy. For seniors in America, the UK, Canada, and Australia, this is more than a story about a billionaire. It's a reminder that your body's reset is a message, not a punishment. Rest isn't robbing you of time. It's giving you the chance to use your remaining years more fully. Think about it. Sharper mornings with less fatigue, clearer conversations with family, the ability to walk without strain, and the presence to enjoy a grandchild's laughter or a quiet sunrise. None of that requires burning out. It requires honoring your body's wisdom. Buffett reframed rest as investment. Every extra hour of sleep became a deposit into sharper thinking. Every pause during the day became borrowed energy for the next meaningful moment. He understood that rest doesn't subtract from legacy, it multiplies it. Because a legacy is not measured by how long you stay on your feet, but by how deeply you touch lives while you can. This reset also carries emotional weight. Many seniors fear slowing down because society equates activity with worth. But here's the truth. After 60, your worth isn't proven in busyness. It's expressed in presence. Rest allows you to give your best self to the people who matter most. It gives you clarity to write down the stories no one else can tell, patience to listen without distraction, and the strength to say yes to moments of joy that might otherwise slip away. So, don't see rest as the thief of your time. See it as the quiet partner that sustains your wisdom and preserves your purpose. Buffett's body forced him to slow down, but his decision to embrace that reset gave him more years of influence, not fewer. Do you see rest now as a gift or a frustration? Share your truth in the comments. Your voice may be exactly what another senior needs to hear today. Sign 2. The forgotten names and quiet fear. When Warren Buffett reflected on life at 80, He admitted to something that money and brilliance could not protect him from: the small but unsettling lapses of memory. It wasn't about forgetting figures in a balance sheet or missing a decimal in a report. Numbers still came naturally to him. What startled him was when familiar names slipped from his mind, when faces he had known for years carried a pause before recognition. For someone who built his empire on sharp recall and quick analysis, this was more than an inconvenience. It was a quiet fear, the fear of losing pieces of himself. Many seniors can relate to this silent battle. Forgetting where the keys are is one thing, but forgetting a loved one's birthday, a neighbor's name, or a story once told effortlessly, those moments feel heavier. They are not about absent-mindedness. They carry the question, what if this is the beginning of more? For Buffett, the lapse wasn't about embarrassment. He was not ashamed of being human. What struck him most was the sobering reminder that time eventually takes what it wants, no matter how tightly we try to hold on. But here lies the lesson. Rather than wallowing in fear or hiding behind excuses, Buffett chose a different path. He focused even more intentionally on what mattered most. Instead of trying to recall every detail, he sharpened his energy toward relationships, conversations, and priorities that held meaning. If the mind was going to let go of something, he was determined it would never be the things that carried his legacy. This is a powerful message for seniors everywhere. Forgetfulness does not define you. What defines you is where you place your attention. Memory lapses can be painful, but they can also serve as reminders to document your stories, to write letters to family, to share wisdom now rather than waiting for tomorrow. Instead of clinging to the frustration of forgetting, embrace the freedom of choosing what is worth remembering. Buffett's experience shows that memory is not only about storage, it is about focus. At 80, he didn't chase every lost detail. He invested his attention like he invested his money, with precision. Seniors today can do the same. Keep a journal of the stories that shaped you. Record your values in writing or video for future generations. Speak your truths aloud to children and grandchildren, because a memory share becomes a memory preserved. And most of all, do not let fear steal the joy of the present moment. Forgetting is part of being human, but meaning comes from what you give your heart to, not from what slips away. Buffett's quiet fear became a quiet strength, because he discovered that the essence of who he was could not be erased by forgotten names. What about you? What memory do you never want to lose? Share it in the comments, because your answer may remind someone else of what truly matters before it's too late. Sign 3. The taste of simplicity. When Warren Buffett reached 80, many expected his dining table to reflect the sophistication of a man worth billions: rare wines, gourmet meals, and dishes reserved for the world's elite. Instead, what he revealed surprised almost everyone. His cravings circled back to the basics: a can of Coca-Cola, a scoop of ice cream, and a simple hamburger. To outsiders, this habit looked unusual, even childish. But beneath it lay a profound truth about aging. As the years advance, life often pulls us back toward simplicity, to the foods and comforts that carry memory and emotional weight. For Buffett, these meals weren't about taste alone. They were about connection. Every sip of Coke or bite of a burger wasn't luxury, but familiarity. At 80, surrounded by wealth and endless options, he chose the ordinary. Why? Because ordinary things had become extraordinary anchors. They reminded him of his youth in Omaha, of family moments that money could never replicate, of the grounding comfort that came from knowing who he was long before the world labeled him a billionaire. Seniors across America, the UK, Canada, and Australia can relate to this instinct. As we grow older, the body and mind yearn for what feels safe, what feels known, what feels like home. A simple bowl of oatmeal that a mother once served, a slice of apple pie tied to holidays, or a warm cup of tea that calms the evening. These are not signs of regression. They are markers of emotional nourishment. They remind us that life's value doesn't increase with extravagance, but with meaning. Too often, society tries to equate aging with loss. Less energy, fewer adventures. narrower diets. But Buffett's choice shows us something different. Simplicity in aging is not about shrinking life down. It's about focusing life on what matters most. It's permission to enjoy what you love without apology, to savor comfort without explanation, to let go of the need to impress and instead embrace the need to feel whole. For seniors, this lesson holds a deeper application. Choosing simplicity in meals often extends beyond food. It seeps into lifestyle. Fewer possessions, clearer routines, stronger focus on relationships. Just as Buffett didn't need gourmet meals to feel fulfilled, seniors don't need excess to feel complete. The act of choosing what is simple yet meaningful is itself a declaration of freedom. It says, "I no longer live to prove, I live to savor." So here's the takeaway. Don't dismiss your return to basics as weakness or nostalgia. See it as wisdom. Each simple choice is a way of preserving joy. Each comforting meal is a reminder that life's sweetness is found in presence, not performance. Buffett may have billions, but at 80, he taught us that sometimes the richest life is found in the simplest tastes. What about you? What simple meal still comforts you after all these years? Share it below. Your answer might stir someone else's memory and remind them that the most ordinary foods can carry the most extraordinary love. Sign 4. The heavy silence of outliving friends. By the time Warren Buffett turned 80, he had already lived through an extraordinary sweep of history. Wars, market crashes, revolutions in technology, and the building of one of the greatest fortunes the world has ever seen. Yet, when he reflected on aging, the detail that struck him hardest was not about money or markets. It was about funerals. He admitted that as the years passed, the funerals multiplied. Friends he had laughed with, partners he had worked alongside, mentors who once guided him. One by one, they were gone. And with every loss came a silence that wealth could not fill. This is a reality many seniors know intimately. Outliving your friends can feel like surviving your own story in fragments. The faces you once turned to for advice, the voices you once shared secrets with, the neighbors who witnessed your journey. Slowly, they fade into memory. No check, no stock portfolio, no luxury possession can buy back companionship. And while society often praises longevity as a blessing, seniors understand the unspoken side. Longevity can also mean carrying the weight of absence. Buffett's reflections remind us of something powerful. True wealth isn't measured by the assets you accumulate, but by the relationships you preserve while you still have a chance. Every phone call made, every letter written, every lunch shared becomes a kind of inheritance you give and receive in real time. Friendships are not just social comforts. They are emotional lifelines. They steady us in times of fear. They celebrate us in times of triumph. And they remind us we are never meant to walk through life alone. For seniors today, this truth holds urgency. The older we become, the easier it is to retreat into solitude, sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. But Buffett's lesson shows us the danger of waiting too long. Don't assume there will always be more time to reconnect, to forgive, to express gratitude. The wealth of companionship is not guaranteed. It must be tended while it's still alive. Here is the practical takeaway. Make it a habit to reach out intentionally. Call that friend you haven't spoken to in years. Invite a neighbor for coffee. Write down memories and share them with your children or grandchildren so that stories outlive silence. And if you feel isolated, don't be afraid to join community groups, senior centers, or even online communities where your presence can light someone else's day. Because every relationship preserved is a shield against loneliness. Buffett's billions gave him security, but even he admitted that no fortune could bring back the people he loved. The lesson for seniors everywhere is sobering yet empowering. While you can't control the march of time, you can control how you nurture the bonds you still have. Preserve them now, because companionship is the one currency that grows more valuable as you age. So here's my challenge to you. Write the name of one friend you're grateful is still here. By saying their name, you're not only honoring them, You're reminding yourself that friendship is the truest form of wealth. Sign 5. The courage to say no. By the time Warren Buffett entered his 80s, he had mastered a skill more powerful than compound interest, more liberating than any investment strategy, and more transformative than the wealth he had built. That skill was the ability to say one simple word: no. For decades, he had been pulled in every direction: corporate boards, endless meetings, travel requests, interviews, public appearances. People assumed that with wealth came an obligation to say yes. But Buffett revealed that his most valuable habit at 80 was the courage to decline. He learned to say no to draining obligations, no to unnecessary travel, no to the constant noise of people demanding his time. And in saying no, he discovered something unexpected: freedom. Not the financial freedom he had always been known for, but a deeper freedom. The freedom to direct his remaining energy toward what mattered most. For Buffett, that meant protecting his time, his clarity, and his peace. This lesson is especially powerful for seniors. Too often, aging is painted as a narrowing of choices, as if life after 60 means settling for less. But in truth, aging can be the moment you finally gain authority over your time. Saying no is not withdrawal from life. It is the bold act of choosing life on your terms. When you say no to obligations that drain you, you say yes to the people, passions, and priorities that sustain you. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to something out of guilt, fear, or habit, only to feel resentful or exhausted afterward? Buffett's insight shows us that no amount of people-pleasing will protect your health or extend your years. But choosing carefully, guarding your boundaries, and valuing your energy, that is what sustains your legacy. For seniors in America and around the world, this is more than practical advice. It is a mindset shift. You have spent decades saying yes. Yes to raising children, yes to long hours at work, yes to responsibilities that sometimes left little room for yourself. Now, the courage to say no becomes your reward. It is not selfishness. It is stewardship of your health, your spirit, and your limited but precious time. And here's the emotional truth. Every no carries hidden power. When you say no to noise, you create space for peace. When you say no to draining people, you open room for love. When you say no to meaningless busyness, you reclaim energy for meaningful presence. Buffett did not step back from life when he embraced no. He stepped forward into a life with sharper focus. Seniors can do the same. So here is your reflection today. What's one thing you've finally learned to say no to after 60? Share in the comments, because your answer might be the encouragement another senior needs to claim their own freedom. Saying no is not the end of influence. It is the beginning of living with purpose. Buffett's billions made headlines, but his most liberating discovery at 80 was a word that costs nothing yet saves everything. When Warren Buffett reached 80, he spoke with remarkable honesty about something that startled many. His greatest fear was not death. Death, in his view, was inevitable and final. What unsettled him most was the idea of becoming irrelevant. Imagine that. One of the most influential voices in global finance, a man who had shaped markets and guided generations of investors, admitting that his deepest anxiety wasn't the end of life, but the fading of his voice while still alive. This confession carries weight for seniors everywhere. Aging is often framed as a quiet fading into the background, as though wisdom automatically loses its place once youth dominates the stage. But Buffett's reflection reveals the opposite. Wealth can protect your comfort, your health care, your security, but it cannot guarantee that your voice will still matter. What sustains relevance isn't money, it's purpose. And purpose is available to everyone, not just billionaires. For seniors, the lesson is liberating. You don't need billions to remain significant. Relevance comes from mentoring a younger colleague, sharing family stories that no one else can tell, writing down the lessons you've learned, or guiding a grandchild through the confusions of growing up. In fact, the most powerful legacies are not written in financial ledgers, but in hearts, conversations, and values passed down through generations. Buffett realized that the true tragedy of aging isn't that the body slows down, it's when the spirit gives up on speaking truth. Relevance is preserved when you continue to pour meaning into the lives of others. When you mentor, you create echoes. When you tell your story, you build bridges. When you guide your family, you leave behind a compass that no storm can erase. This hidden truth is raw but empowering. Seniors are not defined by whether society still places them on the front page. They're defined by the way they choose to keep showing up, offering wisdom, and anchoring the people around them. To stay relevant is to keep your purpose alive, to remind yourself that your presence carries weight, even if the spotlight has shifted elsewhere. So here's the challenge. Don't measure your worth by the noise of the crowd. Measure it by the voices you shape, the lives you steady, the lessons you leave behind. Because relevance is not about being seen by millions. It's about being remembered by the ones who matter most. And that is a power no fortune can ever buy. When Warren Buffett looked back at his journey at 80, the lessons he uncovered were not about the size of his portfolio or the success of his investments. They were about the subtle, human truths that carry weight long after the spotlight fades. His story reminds us that the greatest wisdom often emerges in the quiet spaces, the places where age teaches us what money never could. The first anchor is this: rest is a new rhythm, not defeat. For decades, Buffett was known for his relentless pace. But aging forced him to embrace rest, not as a weakness, but as strategy. For seniors, this means valuing energy as carefully as you once valued time. Choosing to pause is not giving up. It is creating space to live fully. Second, memory may fade, but meaning doesn't. Buffett admitted that names and details slipped away more often at 80. But instead of letting fear rule, he focused on preserving what mattered: his values, his relationships, his stories. Seniors everywhere can find peace in this truth. It is not what you forget that defines you, but what you choose to pass on. Third, simplicity nourishes the soul. While the world expected Buffett to indulge in rare luxuries, he returned to basics: Coke, ice cream, hamburgers. Aging often draws us back to comfort, but there's no shame in it. Simplicity isn't regression. It is a return to the essentials that feed joy, safety, and memory. Fourth, friendship is priceless wealth. Buffett admitted the ache of attending more funerals as he grew older. Money could not buy back companionship. For seniors, this is the reminder to treasure relationships while they're still alive, to pick up the phone, to make the visit, to preserve bonds before silence takes their place. And finally, no is the gateway to freedom. At 80, Buffett's most liberating discovery was the courage to decline. No to draining obligations. No to unnecessary noise. Seniors have the right to guard their time fiercely, to invest their energy only where it matters most. Saying no isn't retreat, it is empowerment. So here is your challenge. What truth will you refuse to let fade with age? Share it in the comments. Your voice can inspire someone who needs to hear it. And remember, subscribe to Next Age Wisdom, because next week we reveal the hidden daily habit Buffett still practices at 94. Your story matters more than your balance sheet. May your voice stay sharp, your presence steady, and your courage unshakable. Together, we prove that wisdom after 60 is the true Billionaires Club.